Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our analytical series, the Tactical Breakdown Show, in which we look at players with the help of some experts, some statistics as well, and we compare them to plenty of Arsenal transfer targets and the current players at the club too. So you guys are fully in the know about all of Arsenal's transfer targets this summer. This is your second dose of Tactical Breakdown today already. We have, of course, looked at Sambi Lonkonga at Anderlecht. We were helped out by some guys over in the Belgian press. So if you haven't watched that one already, please make sure you do. But today's later second show is regarding the Turkish international and Lille right back Zeki Celik, who, of course, plays this summer at the European Championships and is expected maybe to leave the club as well, with plenty of top clubs, including Arsenal, Spurs, Manchester United, etc., and others interested in the Turkish international. Now, how we do these shows is, first of all, we kick things off typically with some expert insight, but we've got a little bit of a special show for you today because we've got two pieces of expert insight. Our first comes from Simon Collings, who is the man from the Evening Standard who broke the story this morning. You may have seen his tweet. You can find him on Twitter at @SR_Collings. So we're going to hear from Simon about his inside track on the Arsenal deal for Zeki Celik.
I think the first thing to say about Arsenal's interest in Zeki Celik is they're not the only club interested in the Lille right back. As you can imagine, after an impressive season in Ligue 1, where Lille, of course, won the title, a lot of clubs are looking at Celik, and I think that's the case for any team who's looking for a right-sided fullback. He is someone who is on their shortlist, and that certainly goes for Arsenal. The expectation at the club is that Hector Bellerin will leave. There's interest at the moment from Real Betis, but a slight fear that they don't have the financial power to tie up a deal for Bellerin. But Bellerin most likely looks like he will be leaving the club, which means Arsenal need a right back. Celik has emerged as an option that the club are interested in and someone they could push ahead with a deal for. As a price point, you're looking at around 15 million euros is what it's going to take to get him out of Lille, which is a pretty good fee, even in this COVID market, which has seen fees go down and become much less than they were. That is a good price for a player who has impressed this season in France. I think what Arsenal like about him is his ability on the ball and his ability to get forward. He's actually got one of the sort of highest stats, I think, in Ligue 1 for ball progression from a fullback. He's someone who can open up defences like that and get on the overlap. And also we've seen his ability to press high up the pitch and win the ball. And I think on the left flank, Arsenal have had that with Tierney, someone who's very much an all-action fullback, a direct player, and they want that on the right-hand side, and they think that Celik could provide that. Arsenal, though, they are looking at other right-backs. I think Max Aarons at Norwich is someone to keep an eye on. There's a lot of Premier League clubs who like him. He's been very good in the Championship, and he's someone that Arsenal are also interested in. And as I said at the start, with Celik, it's going to be a case of which club is able to tie up a deal from, Tottenham, Manchester United, Inter Milan could also be interested if Hakimi leaves. So it won't be plain sailing for Arsenal, but if they are to make a move for Celik, he's someone who could bolster their squad, and for a fee which, given that Arsenal don't have tons of money to spend, could be very reasonable for them.
A massive thank you to Simon for helping out with today's show. Of course, Simon, yes, I said already, you can follow him on Twitter at @SR_Collings on Twitter. He broke the story over at the London Evening Standard. Make sure you go read his article. It is in the description if you want to go and find out some more information about what Simon has said about the deal. But it is interesting to hear that the price is so low for someone of Celik's quality. 15 million euros is incredibly low. You're looking at something about 12 million pounds there for a deal for a right back. Could be even less than the fee that we end up getting for someone like Hector Bellerin, who has been linked with moves away, as Simon said, and you could expect to see him go for even more than the price of his replacement, which would be some very good business by Arsenal, considering, as we said, we don't know how much money is going to be made available to Arsenal this summer. Now, that is not the end of our expert insight of the day, because we're also very, very also pleased to be joined by Jeremy Smith, who, of course, is our resident French football expert. You can find him on Twitter at JeremySmith98. And Jeremy's going to give you the inside track on someone who's watched him throughout the season.
Have been linked with is probably not surprisingly a Lille player, seeing as there's probably going to be a big exodus from the new Ligue 1 champions this year. and this is Zeki Celik, who's the right back for the club. He's already been linked a few times with clubs in England, Spurs, Everton, I think possibly West Ham, also PSG in France. And it makes a lot of sense probably for all those clubs and for Arsenal as well. Celik's 24 now, so kind of at or approaching the peak of his career. He's already got a lot of experience, about 200 professional first team appearances, and is really developing into a top right back. Top sort of modern right back, in that he's better than a modern right back, I was going to say, because he's got a really good attacking side. For me, too many right backs nowadays, or full backs, are actually not very good at the defensive side, but he's also a top defender, as he's shown for Lille and for Turkey. Really good tackler, good positional sense, not great in the air, but which I suppose could be an issue more in Premier League than maybe other leagues, but maybe not the most essential sort of skill set in a fullback. But yeah, lots of defensive rigor, but more than that, is so good going forward. Really good number of assists for Lille this year. He's also pitched in with 3 goals, a couple of real crackers as well. 3 assists, I think maybe last year was 5 assists. Really good fitness levels. He had an ankle injury this year, but has really only missed a handful of matches in the last 3 years. Relatively clean for a modern fullback. Only 1 career sending off. 8 yellow cards this year is a little bit too many, but something that he can work on. Really good cross on him. Good footballer, as in good with the ball, so can combine well with the attacking players in front of him. Good on the overlap, can play as a fullback or as a wing back. Has filled in once or twice as a centre back if necessary, although very much not his position. So yeah, kind of definitely a sort of really good version of a modern fullback who can do a little bit of everything. He's got good experience, obviously now a league winner, an international. I think he'd be a top signing for Arsenal, and certainly if they're showing interest, and we know that Lille are sort of ready to sell players, if Arsenal can put in a decent bid. I think he speaks English, and he's mentioned before how he likes the Premier League. I know all footballers do that, and maybe they're sort of keeping an eye on their bank account as much as what they actually really want to join. But certainly there must surely be a deal to be done there. 3 years at Lille is actually quite a long time for any footballer in the last few years, and I think he'd be a great fit for Arsenal.
There you go. So we're hearing all the right words coming out from both our journalists and our experts in regards to Zeki Celik, or Celik. I'm really going to need to get on the Turkish experts to work out. We've had lots of pronunciations of different ones now, so we're going to have to hear what the right way of pronouncing it is. But it's certainly a very, very interesting player, a really, really interesting player that I think that should you reconnect him with Pepe, of course, who we played at in 2018-19 at Lille, where we had that amazing season. He knows him, he knows how he works, how he plays, and those two maybe would have a really good kind of season together. That would be interesting, and maybe that would then affect who we go for in regards to, say, a Buendia type. We're going to go for more of an out-and-out number 10. Anyway, let's go on to the second part of our video, which is, of course, looking at the statistics of the player and making some player comparisons with some of our current players and the targets that we've been linked to as well. So seeing as we are looking at the right-back position, we've gone for some players that we've been linked to. Now, you will notice, and your first question may be, where is Mazraoui on this list? Now, I haven't included Mazraoui because we are going to be doing a tactical breakdown dedicated to Mazraoui either tomorrow or on Friday, in which I will compare his statistics to the Moroccan international, and Celik will be there in that comparison as well. So that's why Mazraoui isn't there. So if you want to see how those two stack up, then make sure you tune in to one of our videos later on this week, where we will be looking at him in a lot more detail. But we are going to compare him to Bellerin, of course, the man who is looking to replace Max Aarons, and Emerson, who has now moved on to Barcelona. So without further ado, let's look at their heat maps. As you can see, he is certainly a very much an intense player on that right-hand side, as you would expect from your right back. But what's interesting about this is certainly more of an inside right back, as you see from the heat that's intense is coming more inside and infield, which means he does like to do the overlaps, does like to see his winger move on the outside of him at times and come in to kind of cover positions of either the centre midfielder when they've pushed up, like a Samaro when he pushes up, come into the inside and cover that role as well. But it's interesting to see that he's not, as you see with like Aarons' heat map, very much skewed out and pushed to that side of the screen. You don't get that with Celik, and he covers a lot more ground in that area. Go on to the defensive duels. As Jeremy did say, this is a guy that can defend exceptionally well, and he shows that with the amount of defensive duels. More defensive duels than Emerson in this area, which is something when we looked at Emerson in particular in regards to how he compared to Max Aarons in his tactical breakdown. We thought of Emerson as a very good defensive right back that could do stuff going forward as well. Celik is certainly someone that can add that defensive might as well, and with the success rate too. Second highest win rate is 61.1%, but 9.71 defensive duels in each game is very impressive. Moving on to the aerial side of his game, Jeremy did talk about it's not necessarily an amazing part of his game, but 2.27, winning 45.5% is the second highest win rate on our list. So maybe the fact that you can play as a centre-back as an additional kind of factor in that is leaning in towards that success rate there. Loose ball duels is always something that's a little bit of a random stat in how committed they are to those challenges, and he comes out with the second highest frequency at 2.6, and he comes out with the second highest win rate of 45% as well. If we're looking at the interceptions, he comes out very well, second highest once again behind Emerson with 4.79, below Emerson's 5.14, better than Bellerin and better than Max Aarons. Losses, he does make the most losses, however the least percentage of them being in his own half, 10.74 losses per match, but with only 35.5% of those happening in his own half in comparison to someone like Aarons or Bellerin, whose losses, their percentage losses showed them to be more so in their own half in comparison to Celik. Looking then at the recoveries, he does come out on top with the recoveries, which is certainly a plus side when you look at the amount of losses that he did make. 8.53 recoveries per match is a very good return, with 28.6% of those happening in the opposition half. Going into the passing side of his statistics, he does come out with a lower percentage accuracy of passing with 79.4%, which is the lowest of all of the players on this list. But what he does do quite well is pass into the final third, again with the lowest accuracy, but the frequency. This guy is always trying to play those passes into that right winger, into that final third, to set them away and maybe become a much more accomplished passer if he was playing at Arsenal. But at 67.3%, I would like to see that accuracy increased a bit higher. That is certainly one of the lowest and comfortably the lowest on this list. Passes into the penalty area are decent in terms of 2.76 per match with a 45.9% accuracy there. It certainly seems to be the part of his game that he needs to develop to come up to the level of the others in this list, but it is only a marginal difference between those, and he comes out with the second highest frequency of passes into the penalty area with his crossing. And as Jeremy said, his crossing is something that is very good and part of his game that is integrated. Going into the touch and penalty area, he's not typically a type of right back that likes to get into the box, it seems, in comparison to some of the others. Just over once per game he's getting a touch inside the penalty area. But when he actually gets on the ball, he is more of a dribbler than, say, someone like Hector Bellerin, 2.54, but not so much in the same level as someone like Max Aarons. Travels with the ball less than the Norwich City right back, but with a 55% success rate, it's not too bad. Total shots in terms of how he's done this season, he's taken 88 shots, which is a hell of a lot more than the others on our list. Seeing Emerson with just the 9 in his last 75 attempts, and Bellerin as well with the 15, Aarons with 27, but 88 shots from Celik. He is certainly someone that likes to try and get as many shots in as he feasibly can. Very interesting statistics there from the Turkish international. So there is all of those statistics regarding Zeki Celik. I hope you've enjoyed that side of it. And we move on to the final point of the show, which is, of course, getting your thoughts and feelings in the chat box. So if you are and have some feelings on the Turkish international, then please do throw them into the chat box. But I would like to say a massive thank you, first of all, to Gareld Deliska, who's joined up as one of our brand new members. Thank you ever so much for the support, mate. Really appreciate that. I'm sure you'll get a warm welcome from plenty of our members in the chat box today. Let's go some of your thoughts and feelings then. Kanab says, I would sign this guy right now. Where do I sign? But do you rate this guy over someone like Max Aarons? Thanks to you, Tom, for building this community. No problem at all. In regards to where I kind of rate him, this is quite similar to the Mazraoui situation, where I think my personal preference is a Max Aarons. I think he's certainly someone that would add what we need to the team. I like how attacking he is as a right back. Yes, there are more questions about him defensively, which Celik certainly comes out on top in that area. But Aarons is probably the more accomplished, forward-thinking right back. But the problem is with Aarons is he's going to cost you £30 million minimum to bring him in. And when you've got someone like Celik that's available for €15 million, and you can then invest your larger fees into other areas of the pitch, like centre midfield, like maybe a wide player in Buendia or an attacking midfield player in Buendia, another centre-back possibly, that is too good, in my view, to turn down. That €15 million price is an excellent deal for this guy. And the chemistry that he would bring, playing once again with Gabriel and Pepe and maybe even Basuma, were we to bring him in as well. So there is all of those pluses. What about Lamptey, says Michael Thomas. Lamptey, again, is a bit of an unknown. I think he's more of a risk because of the injury that he has had this season, which kept him out a hell of a lot. So it's very hard to commit to someone like Lamptey, knowing he's had these injury problems. Speaking of Celik's injury issues, he's missed 7 games this season. One of those was due to the pandemic, and the other 6, was because of an ankle injury. But prior to that, he's had no injuries on his injury history on Transfermarkt at all. So he's a very, very clean injury record as well for a 24-year-old, which is very good. Shriram says, a massive upgrade from our current bench, but Max Aarons obviously seems a better choice. Money is the problem right now. Joe Gifford says, looks like a signing smart clubs would make. We can rule him out. Once again, always coming in with the positivity, Joe. Arsenal should get this done ASAP, says Billy. Vuk says, if possible, should we do a tactical breakdown? Should include stats like crosses, etc., assists and goals for certain players. The reason why I don't typically do raw goals and assists, especially not for right backs, is because it's contextual to across like 90 minutes and injuries and the amount of games they played. Crosses, I don't need to put in because we do passes into the penalty area. So that's why I've got that stat in there and not crosses. That's why we don't cover that one. Man Like Mo says 50 million is a bargain for his quality. As a Turk, I've watched him a lot and he's massive upgrade on Bellerin. Jamar says 50 million is an absolute bargain. Ashton says much more bang for your buck when you buy from Liga. Ali says, is he another Lille player we look to sign after one great season that will need time to settle, or has he been growing for seasons? He has been an excellent right back at Lille for the 3 seasons that he's been there. Since he joined in 2018, I think it was. And if you listen again to our expert insight, you'll hear that from Jeremy as well. Coop Dog says, who are your top 3 right back targets? Of course, Aarons is at the top of my targets, but Celik, from looking at him, he's someone that I've spoken about previously. I've written articles on him saying 5 right backs Arsenal could look for. He was on the list, so he is certainly one of them. And Mazraoui is a good shout. He's recommended by Tifo Football previously as well, I remember. So those 3 as a list are certainly 3 that I think is an interesting pick. What's interesting about Mazraoui is, though, that you've got Wrench, the 18-year-old that's there, that's playing a hell of a lot. And that is something that we will consider and talk about when we do the show about Mazraoui in particular. Karaka says, Celik is a faster version of Chambers and also played with Pepe. I don't know if that's an insult or a compliment, if he's a faster version of Chambers. Reese Harvey says, would prefer Emerson. He seems like a good signing if we did sign him, though. He's the Pepe of right backs, says Shu Moya. Again, I don't know what that means. It depends completely on your view of what Pepe is. Josh Hunter says, the fact that he's open to shoot where he can is a promising factor. Darth Vader says, where has this rumor come from? Anywhere reputable? Yes, in fact, it came from the very man that was on this show earlier on, Simon Collings. The link to the article is in the description from the London Evening Standard, so make sure you give that a read. It is a compliment, says Karaka. Mario says, in such a depressed right-back market, I'd just bring back Ainsley and competing with Chambers. If that doesn't work, then wait until next year to see if there's a better option. I don't think there is a depressed right-back market at all. You look at Emerson, that's now gone to Barcelona, Max Aarons, Mazraoui, and now Celik. I don't think that's a depressed right-back market whatsoever. I think if you look to the right-backs that were available last summer, that's when you'd have a bit of a problem. Hakimi is there, but we're not going to be going in for him. I think that Celik is a very, very good option for Arsenal and certainly an upgrade on what we've got already. Sahil says, Tom, do you think we might have to get a homegrown player? Possibly so. We have got quite a few homegrowns already. Basically, it's not about getting homegrown players. It's about making sure that you don't exceed the 17 non-homegrown players. That's the most important factor. It's not always about the fact you have a homegrown player. It's just making sure that you have less, or just you have 17 or less of the non-homegrown players. That's the important factor. Jack Burgess says, I'm sorry, but deals need to be done before the Euros as well. Need to stop messing about. We need to get these deals done quickly, as we'll have a lot of other competition from clubs playing in Europe. Now, I will say Jack is still hold fire. There is still time. I think Arsenal have got a lot of outgoing business that they need to sort first. Also, if you look at how much business other clubs are doing right now, it's not a lot. Not a lot of business is going on, especially in the Premier League. So that's something that you need to think about. It's not a case of everyone dilly-dallying. It's just the situation. We've just come to the end of the season. Players are on holiday. We've got the Euros coming up, and there are other players that are away with their international teams, which does slow down the process. So just chill on that one for sure. Abe says Radul Baku is a quality player, but he is obviously more of a wing back, and obviously he has played in midfield at Mainz and then moved to Wolfsburg and has come through there playing on kind of a right wing at times when Mbabu plays. When Mbabu was injured, he moved to that right back position. So he's a very good option, and I like him a lot, but it would be a bit of a risk knowing that defensively his game can be more questionable. Anyway, I think that will bring us to the end of today's show. Thank you ever so much for everyone that's tuned into all three shows today. We did our transfer update this morning, followed by our Kongonga tactical breakdown, and then now we've just obviously finished our Zeki Celik tactical breakdown too. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for your next transfer update. Plenty of news I'm sure is going to break in the next 8 hours or so. If you have not had enough of my content, I'll be working over at 101 Great Goals for the next 8 hours, making sure you're up to date with all the latest football news. So make sure you go follow them at 101 Great Goals. And of course, we'll be then following up tomorrow's transfer show with plenty more tactical breakdowns on the likes of Onana and Mazraoui. So make sure you tune in for all of those. Drop a like on the video as well. We really appreciate your support, and drop a subscription if you are new to the channel too. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. As always, a massive thank you to Jeremy Smith and to Simon Collings for their help with today's video also. See you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.